So the All Blacks have won their Test series up against France, but there's still the third match taking place this weekend, and in this video I'll be trying to predict what Scott Robertson will select for his third AB side of 2025. Now, Scott Robertson initially said he was going to be rotating his side, giving every single person an opportunity throughout these July internationals, and he did reiterate that just before, so it means we are going to see quite a few changes for this match at FMG Stadium, but it is going to be extremely challenging to know who is being taken out and who is being brought in for this fixture. But we will start with the front row of who I think Scott Robertson might select. Number 1, Ollie Norris. Number 2, Samisoni Taukei'aho. And number 3, Pasili Otosi. So going with the 3 men who made their way off the bench in the first and second Test match, FMG Stadium, of course, the home for Ollie Norris and Samisoni Taukei'aho in Super Rugby. So it does make sense that they would get some starting minutes here. I think that Ethan de Groot and Fletcher Null, they have both proven what they can do, and I don't see the risk-reward factor of playing them in this contest, unless, of course, Robertson is still looking for that consistency. Maybe that's how we see those two starting here. Also, Tyrell Lomax expected to make his return, so there is a chance that we see Ethan de Groot 1, Tyrell Lomax number 3, just to rebuild that chemistry that they did have last year. I do think it would do a world of good, though, to give these 3 starting minutes. Definitely if you do have an injury of one of those frontline props heading through the Rugby Championship. In the locking duo, this is where I have stuck with the same duo as they have for match 2. Number 4, Patrick Tuipulotu, and number 5, Fabian Holland. He has been an absolute standout for the All Blacks across those first 2 matches. The work rate of the man is immense. Patrick Tuipulotu, last match, it made a huge difference at line-out time. The All Blacks, they were getting the steals, which is something they didn't have a single one of throughout the first match. It also seemed to boost the confidence of Fabian Holland in that regard too. But I do think Tuipulotu and also Holland will keep their spots. And at the starting side, moving on to the loose forward trio, this is where we are guaranteed a change. Tupavai failing his HIA. He is out with a concussion, which means Test match number 3 is wide open for someone on the blind side, and this is where I believe they will go with Samipeni Finau. He has been making his way off the bench in the first 2 contests. Luke Jacobson also anticipating a return here, so there's a chance they could look at him as the blindside flanker, but if you're going consistency across what they've done this year, it would make sense just to promote Finau into the starting lineup, seeing as he's already had some minutes in that spot before. Number 7, the captain, Ardie Savea. This is where it would be great to see Duplessis Karefi get a run in a starting lineup, but when he's playing the same position as Ardie Savea, I think this is going to be a bit of a repeat of the Hurricanes a little while ago, how Karefi just can't quite get that starting spot because Ardie Savea has got it tied up. Now, the other option you could look at is Karefi to start at 7. You chuck Savea in the number 8 jersey, but I don't know if Scott Robertson wants to do that. I believe that since now Savea is playing 7 consistently, the last thing you want to do is reshuffle it for this third test. So I think they'll stick with Christian Leo Willie in that number 8 jersey. He has looked dangerous throughout his first 2 appearances for the All Blacks. And if you want to keep on building that young man's confidence, you keep him in that All Blacks environment for one more week. In the 9-10 combination, this is where it's very tricky to know what Scott Robertson will do, because like I said, he has mentioned he wants to give every single player a chance out there on the field, but he hasn't said whether or not the guys who haven't had any minutes yet are actually going to be starting or whether they will be making their way off the bench. So this is where I think he might go consistency and have Cam Roigard as the number 9, Beauden Barrett as the number 10. Now that would be a kick in the face, of course, for Chiefs fans, seeing as this is the home turf of Cortez Ratama and Damian McKenzie, but there's just that little inkling that either they're going to straight switch them both or they're going to leave them the same. Now, Roigard's in sensational form, and France have said this is the game that they are going to target out of the series. They have made their switches in the first 2, but if France were to win this third match, they would actually go up to 2nd in the world rankings, dropping New Zealand to 4th. And honestly, if you are the French, yes, you've lost the series, but you'd actually say it's a pretty big positive for France coming out of July if they were to gain 2 ranking spots ahead of the All Blacks and also the Irish. So I do think there is a chance, like I said, Robertson might switch them both, and in my lineup a little bit later on in the week, I am going to be doing just that with a couple more reshuffles thrown in there too. But there is just that little chance that Scott Robertson takes location out of it and goes with what he might be looking at as the starting 9 and 10 for the Rugby Championship. Moving on to the midfield combo, this is where I have got a couple Chiefs. Number 12, Quinn Tupaia. Number 13, Anton Lienert-Brown. Now, I believe he still has to get medically cleared, Lienert-Brown, but he is expected to make his return for this contest. So if he is not available at 13, I think they'll just leave Billy Proctor in that outside centre role. But if he is, there's a chance that we see Lienert-Brown starting just to get him some decent minutes heading into the Rugby Championship. Tupaia, he did feature off the bench in the first match up against France. He did look decent, managed to get a turnover 1. I know some people want to see Timothy Tavatavanawai start in this contest, and there is that possibility, and I don't want to jinx this, but I don't think we're going to see Jordie Barrett play in this matchup. He did play the first 2 matches. He took a nasty knock on the nose in the second. I feel like he's proven what he can do, so he doesn't need to be out there on the field again. Whereas with Tupaia and Timothy Tavatavanawai, those guys theoretically could be playing off for the same spot in that Rugby Championship when it comes to minutes. So both will want to make an impact, which is why Timothy, of course, will feature on my bench later on. In the back 3, this is where I believe they will stick with Rieko Ioane out on the left. I thought he played extremely well in that second test match. Seemed to right a few of those wrongs that he had in test match number 1. He was chasing the ball a lot harder. He was making some very crucial tackles throughout the match. A moment that comes to mind as well was when he was able to intercept the ball right on the goal line for the ABs, stop France from scoring a certain try. Out on the right wing, this is where, if he is available, I actually think they'll go straight back to Sevu Reece. He only had 1 minute in the game up against France. Amoni Narawa, it would be great to see him play in front of the home crowd, but with the fact that he is still just the injury cover for the All Blacks, it makes me think that if Sevu Reece is available, he will be straight back in to this All Black side. We also did learn that Caleb Clarke will be out for 6 to 8 weeks, so it does still keep those options open on the wings. Perhaps we could see Sevu Reece left wing, Amoni Narawa right wing for this match, but it's very hard to tell what Razor will be thinking for this contest, but I wonder if he will be thinking this. Number 15, Ruben Love. He hasn't had any minutes as of yet, so he would fit into that category of someone who needs to play in this match, according to Scott Robertson. Taking out Will Jordan, I think, is a huge risk, which is actually why I've kept Beauden Barrett as the number 10. I do think you need someone in that back line who has been playing consistently throughout the 2 other matches. They would have learnt quite a few things in the first 2 matches up against France, and I am anticipating a very strong French side here, even though it has been said that it won't be their absolutely strongest lineup possible due to the players still in France, but this can still be a very dangerous French side, and we saw that in the first test match. Gilliard, Fisher, Galficou, Gabin Villiers, all players who I hope will feature in this matchup, so that's where you either need, I believe, Will Jordan, or you do need Beauden Barrett still in the side, but it would mean that Will Jordan gets a much-needed rest. He's been consistent for the Crusaders throughout the year, although he did have that injury in the middle patch, which is another reason that I think they might look at resting him now. But Ruben Love, he can play 15, he can play 10, and he is a very bright prospect for the future of the ABs. But now we move on to the bench for this contest. I have gone number 16, Brodie McAllister, same reasoning as Ruben Love, hasn't played any minutes as of yet, so I'd expect to see him get his debut in this contest. George Bower is who I have decided to go with as the number 17. Same reasoning. We haven't seen him play at this stage. He did come in for the injury of Tamaiti Williams, and it wouldn't be a bad thing to see a third loose head prop have a bit of a run out before heading into the Rugby Championship. Tyrell Lomax as the number 18. If he is 100% match fit, there is a chance that they start him, but I think that the spot off the bench might be the better fit for Lomax in this game. Moving on to number 19. This is where I've got a debut for the ABs, and that is Naitoa Akoi. Now, there is a chance that this doesn't happen because he hasn't actually been officially added into the All Black squad. He has been training with them since pretty much the start of July. He, for me, is the unofficial replacement for Scott Barrett, seeing as we still don't have a timeline for Scott Barrett's injury. But Naitoa Akoi, he knows these conditions well. He loves a line-out steal. And I do think for the All Blacks, with the injury of Vai as well, you still need a specialist lock. Naitoa Akoi can give you that. Yes, Samapeni Finau, they may say, can play one of those locking roles if needed. But I think you do want that lock. I think Naitoa Akoi will be a great option there. Number 20. This is where I have put Luke Jacobson. Once again, very unlucky for Duplessis Karefi, but I think because Jacobson offers 6, 7, and number 8, he will get that nod ahead of Karefi just because of that little bit more versatility that he does offer. He hasn't played for a while after that head knock in the Super Rugby final, but he should be back now. Will be interesting to see how he gets on for this All Blacks team. Number 21, Noah Hotham, same reason, hasn't played any rugby, so expected to get some sort of minutes in this matchup. Number 22, Damian McKenzie, and number 23, Timothy Tavatavanawai. The benefit you've got with McKenzie and Tavatavanawai is McKenzie plays 10 and 15, so that's some pretty handy cover. Then you've also got Timothy, who can play out on the wings as well as in the centres, so that's your whole back line covered if there is any sort of injury that the All Blacks have to deal with. But like I said, Timothy Tavatavanawai, they may actually look to start him in this game rather than having him off the bench. McKenzie, he is in the same boat. Perhaps they start him, have Ratama alongside him, and then Hotham off the bench with no Roy Guard whatsoever. So there are a lot of big decisions that Scott Robertson has to make, and he's only got 3 days to be able to make them. But that is my Razor 23-man side. Later on in the week, I will be giving my 23 that I would like to see. I've got a few little switches along the way, plus when we get the injury updates, I'll be able to use those as well in that video. But I do thank you all very much for tuning in. Do, of course, let me know who you think Scott Robertson will be selecting for this third test match. But one thing is for sure, France are not going to take this game lightly. And like I said, this is the one they want to win. They want to knock New Zealand down to 4th and consider this series, even though it is a loss, as a success for a side, given no chance. But thank you all very much for being here, and I will see you all for the next one.